I'm halfway through Inktober. The halfway is always weird because I feel like I haven't been doing it for very long, but I also feel like I've been doing it forever. I don't know. Getting through the second week of any challenge, like for a monthly challenge, getting through the second week is like so hard. So I'm always really happy when I hit the halfway point, and I'm like, it's all up here from here, friends. Though today was a little bit rushed because I put off doing this too long, and now I'm rushing to get it done. Ooh, I was busy. Okay, but like, challenges, man. Okay, I'll start by just talking about my experience with Inktober so far. So far, I'm having a good time, living a good life. I have definitely seen an improvement in my inking since I started. Like, when I first started, I could not get the dip pen to leave nice marks. I didn't know how much ink to use. I didn't know, how to do ink washes. I didn't know how to do, really rich ink washes, how to fill something in with, a black fill versus, a lighter gray fill. I didn't understand any of it. I was not used to my tools at all. But I'm finding now I'm getting results that I'm pretty okay with. One of my favorites was the one from yesterday with Eileen. I really, really liked that one. I think a big part of it was that I had a really strong under sketch going into it, where I find, if I go in with very vague sketches, the one I did with Radley and Diane, that one is really weird and wonky, and the anatomy is all over the place. But when I have a really strong sketch underneath, I feel like my inking goes pretty good, and I'm definitely getting faster at it. It started out with, all of my recordings would take, 30 to 40 minutes. Now they're taking, 20 minutes. So I'm getting faster. So, whenever I get really comfortable with something, I get way faster with it. So I will be a speed demon once again, my friends. But yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot. It's been really nice to just kind of take a break from other projects and just do a new art skill. I find it really relaxing. I felt the same way when I was working on my 100 Days challenge. It's really nice to only have to dedicate 30 minutes a day to working on this one project. And there's a definitive end to the project. It's not going to go on for years and years. So that's what I really like about doing challenges. Challenges in general, I really like them. I know there's a lot of people out there who do not, and I understand. To each your own, that's fine. But I really like challenges for all the reasons I just listed. It's a break from the usual happenings, I guess. You get to take a break. It gives you an excuse to work on a new skill, especially something like Inktober, where everyone's doing it. Everyone is looking for other people who are doing Inktober, so you get lots of eyes on your work, which means you can get critiques. You can get it's not even getting critiques. I haven't really gotten any critiques, so I don't know what I'm talking about that. Bones cut this out. But especially when you're doing a big thing like Inktober, where there's a community built around it, and you get to meet people, you get to see other people doing the challenge, you find out what their struggles are and what they're really doing. By looking through other people who are working on Inktober, I learned a lot of inking techniques, and I got very inspired by other people. I looked at some artists and I was like, oh, I'm totally doing my ink fills wrong. Instead of trying to fill things in with my pen, I should be filling them in with the brush. Things like that. As someone who works on very long running projects for a long time, so my comic The Magpie, 9 Point, etc., it's really nice to just kind of put comics down for a little bit and work on something else. Because I usually don't have time to just sit down and work on traditional inks if I don't have a project to go along with it. Mostly because, I don't always have enough time to dedicate to, learning a new skill. And that's something I can find, it gets, sad sometimes when I'm, looking at, say, I don't know, traditional inking or sculpting or something, and I'm I really want to do this, but I don't have, an excuse to do it. It's my time would be better spent working on a project that, I don't know, my audience is waiting on, or, finish this big giant project that I've been working on for years that really needs to get done. So, taking the time to work on something else, I feel very guilty about it. But having a challenge where, I guess just having some time where I can work on something new is very nice. I don't exactly know why I need a huge excuse, quote unquote, to do it, a challenge, but it really does just give me that freedom to say I'm I'm gonna jump in with everyone else and do this crazy thing and have fun. And I think that is part of the big appeal about challenges is the community aspect. Because sometimes I will challenge myself with something like very personal. I'm gonna do 15 comic pages this month, where, it's not this big communal thing. And a lot of the time, if there isn't some like crazy reason why it has to be done, like a deadline, like a printing deadline or something like that, it doesn't get done. So like when I'm facing something alone, when there's no like fire under my butt to get it done, I don't do it. But when I have like a community of people I can share the experience with and people who can hold me accountable basically as well, it doesn't get done because I don't have those things. And so yeah, it's really nice to do things with a group of friends to share the excitement with. It can be really easy to give up on things if you're doing them by yourself with no visibility on it, because if you drop the project, no one's watching. They won't know that you dropped the project. So on one hand, if that's how you need to work, that's totally cool. You do you. If it makes you less stressed out, do it. But if you're someone who's always constantly dropping projects, even though you've never announced them to anyone, you're not showing them to anyone, maybe you need to start posting it. Make a challenge out of it. Join a challenge that applies to the thing you want to do. If you're someone who wants to write a novel, do NaNoWriMo. If you're someone who wants to learn how to ink traditionally, do Inktober. It's the perfect excuse to get done what you want to do. And there's so many challenges I want to do. I'm someone who's I want to do everything. I want to try everything. So as soon as I hear about a cool challenge, especially ones that are totally crazy, I get an itch to do them. I don't know why. But when I remember I heard about the 3-day novel challenge thing. I forget what it's called exactly, but it's a 3-day noveling challenge where you write a 100-page book over a weekend, over a long weekend. And it happens in September or something, or end of August. And when I heard about that, I was I want to do this. I think it's just the crazy impossibility of it that makes me want to do it. I'm I could do that. I can't. I tried. I cannot. But just the idea of if I actually was able to do it, that would be so cool. I would be so proud of myself for doing this crazy thing. So a lot of challenges are like that. Where I want to do the crazy thing. I want to do a 24-hour comic. That sounds crazy and insane, and I want to do it because it sounds really fun. And I totally get these month-long challenges can be really daunting. In previous years, I didn't want to do Inktober because I was I'm really busy with my comics. I don't know if I can commit to October because it's really busy. It's full of we have Canadian Thanksgiving during October. It's full of a bunch of birthdays and celebrations, and I was I don't have time to do Inktober and my comics. So I totally get a lot of challenges people don't want to do because they happen at the wrong time of year. I've had that with NaNoWriMo a lot of the time because it's usually when a big deadline has come up and November is insanely busy. Same with if anything happened in December, I probably wouldn't do it because of all the heckin' holiday stuff that happens in December. So there's totally pros and cons to it because sometimes they happen and it's at a really inconvenient time, but if you do it at the proposed time, you get to hang out with the community. So, I don't know. I do really like the 100 days challenge because you can do it whenever it's convenient for you, and there's still a community around it. Because there's always people who are in the middle of it because it's such a long challenge, and there's dedicated groups who will, talk to you and encourage you. That one's a really great challenge for just working on your comics and learning how to do it and making a lot of friends along the way. I feel I should be building to a big point, but basically, I really like challenges. They push me to do things that I would not normally do. They push me out of my comfort zone, which I really like. I'm someone who is always striving to learn all the things, and it's really nice when I have something that's learn this new thing in this allotted time, and I'm yes. Though I personally am someone who needs to work on tight deadlines and I need the fire under my butt. I really need it. It really motivates me to get things done. Especially the crazier the deadline, the more motivated I am. I like challenges. Doot. I hope everyone is having a good time in their Inktobers right now. You can do it. I believe in you. Okay, I should talk about these lovely ladies here. So this is Dahlia and Raven. They are from another fairy RP. It is a different one to the ones we have talked about up until this point. The RP is officially titled Save Dad from Fairies. So I won't get too much into the main plot because a lot of the main characters will show up later and they will get lots and lots of talking about. Okay, I guess I will set up how the world works, because I think that's like the baseline understanding that you need to understand these characters. Okay, so there are two worlds. There's the human world and the fairy world. They are basically on like different planes of existence, and there are portals that can see into both worlds. The human world is exactly like ours, and the fairy world is split up into 4 courts. We love our fairy courts. So the 4 courts, there is the flora court, the fauna court, the fungi court, and the pestilence court. And depending on which court you are born in determines kind of how you look. So like there's, say there's elves and there's goblins and there's pixies and mermaids. If you're a mermaid from the flora court, you will be very much based off like a plant, like a flower or a tree or something. But if you're a mermaid who's born in the fungus court, you will be based off like a mushroom or a fungus of some kind. Fauna is like animals, and then pestilence is like bacteria and all that stuff. So, right, there are portals that lead from the fairy realm to the human realm. There's a lot more control from the fairy world. I think it's just because fairies understand magic a lot more than the humans do. Also, the human world is not aware of the fairy world, but the fairy world is aware of the human world. So, depending on the season is when you can travel to the human world from the fairy world. So, each court has a season associated with it. If only I could remember. I think the fungus one is autumn, pestilence is winter, I think fauna is spring and flora is summer. So if you are in the proper season for the court, that is when you can travel to the human world. So if you're in the flora court during summer, you can travel to the human world. If it is like winter and you're in the flora court, you can see into the human world, but you can't travel there. So that gets that all down. That's all that's important to these two. So Dahlia, she is a sweetie. She is from the Flora Court. She's based off of Dahlia. She's one of the main characters. She meets the human dad who needs to be saved from fairies. He basically is kidnapped. I'll get into it with other characters, but he's basically kidnapped by a Flora fairy named Summer. And she kidnaps him to like look after her kids. Eventually he's like, I gotta get home to my actual kids. And he meets Dahlia, and Dahlia agrees to guide him to the portal that will bring him home. And they do meet in the Pestilence Court, and I think they have to travel to the Fauna Court to get him home, I think. Yeah. So, okay, the dad's name is Russell, by the way. So Russell and Dahlia, they travel to the human world. Along the way, they kind of fall in love a little bit. They have crushes on each other. But, like, Dahlia, she is an actress in the fairy world. She really wants to be, like, a stage performer. She is really adorable and, like, optimistic and sweet. And she is a trans girl in the fairy world. And in the fairy world, gender roles are very, like, traditional. They don't really understand LGBT things at all. They're very heteronormative in the fairy world. They're like, no, men and women get married and they have babies, and that's the only way your heart can meld and a baby is made. That's the only way it happens. And she's like, but what if I'm gay? And they're like, no. And she's like, I'm gonna go be gay over here. So she at first she thinks she's just like gay, and then she starts looking at the human world and she learns about LGBT things, and she realizes she's trans, and she meets Russell, and he because he's from the human world, he's cool. He understands all the LGBT stuff, and she's really embarrassed about it and, like, feels very ashamed because she's been shamed about it her whole life, and he is totally cool with it. And she's like, what? How? And he's like, it's cool. And so eventually they make it to the human world. They are super sweet. So when they get back to the human world, they discover that Russell, when he gets back, his wife, whom he is separated with, it's complicated. He finds out that his wife has disappeared into the fairy world to find him. So he's like, oh no, I can't go back into the fairy world because I have to look after my kids, and I can't explain to my wife's work that she's disappeared into the fairy world. And Dahlia's like, okay, well, how about I glamour myself to look like your wife, and I can pretend to be her during the day and go to work, and I'm an actress, I can be her, just tell me what she's like. They do that. So Dahlia glamours to look like his wife. She goes to her job and works as like a CEO for like an entertainment company, and she learns all about the human world and has a really nice time. She learns about like office politics. Because like the wife was kind of like a little bit too serious, like a total workaholic and stuff. And Dahlia shows up and she's like really sweet and optimistic, and she doesn't really understand business or knows what she's doing, but like all her employees really like her because she's so sweet and like caring, where the wife Jane previously wasn't so much that. So yeah. And then her and Russell are slowly falling in love. They have little troubles because he's still kind of hung up on his wife. Okay, I should also explain, travel between the fairy and the human worlds, there's a catch to being in the wrong world, I guess. So if a human is in the fairy world, they will start to transform into a creature from that court. So if like a human is trapped in the fauna court, they will start turning into an animal. If they are in the flora court, they start turning into a plant, etc. And if a fairy is stuck in the human world, if they stay past a sunrise or a sunset, they will turn into whatever plant, fungus, or animal or whatever that they are based off of. So if Dahlia stayed in the human world past sunset or past sunrise, she would turn into a dahlia flower. So every sunrise and sunset, she has to go back into the fairy world and then come back. Anyways, so they settle down into like taking care of the kids, hanging out, being cool friends, her taking care of the wife's company. Eventually, she starts meeting people in like the LGBT community. She starts learning more about human stuff and like accepting herself more. And then eventually the wife's sister, sorry, I should stop calling her the wife. Her name's Jane. So Jane's sister comes to visit. And so Dahlia's like, oh no, I know nothing about this sister and I'm supposed to be Jane. What do I do? So the sister's name is Raven. She is this lovely lady here. So she shows up and immediately she's like, Jane, you're acting weird. What is this? And so very quickly, she finds out that Dahlia is not Jane. They explain the whole fairy situation to her, and she's like, oh my god, what is this? So Raven is she's like a punk rocker type chick. Her girlfriend just broke up with her, and I think her band broke up because of the breakup. And so she's really bummed about that, and she just wanted to like go see her sister and her nieces and nephews to just like get away from it. And her and Dahlia become fast friends. And part of the reason they become fast friends is because Raven is also a trans girl, and they are really sweet together, and Raven tells her all about her experiences, and they really bond, and they're best gal pals. And yeah, I just really love them. They're really cute friends. Like, Raven is very, like, sassy and, like, she's just, like, a punk rocker at heart. She's very, like, tough and sassy and cool, and she, like, tells it like it is. And then there's Dahlia, who's, like, super sweet and, like, really optimistic and, like, trying her best to help everyone, and they're just so cute, and I love them. And I'm happy they are friendos. So yeah, that is Dahlia and Raven, the best human fairy friendos there ever were. Again, the RP doesn't really have an ending as of yet, but I think one of the major ships was Dahlia and Russell. They would eventually get together. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. And if you want to see more videos about comics and challenges and inking, I have many more for you. Please subscribe. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, friends. Goodbye!